What's up, fellas? How we doing today?
Damn, this feels pro. I'm not gonna lie. These headsets.
Yeah, it sounds good, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on ESPN or something.
Yeah.
And
This
then look
is
at it. You
game
got the
day.
arena in the back. I think it's like F1
Totally.
broadcasting.
ESPN. Yeah, you guys have you guys been watching any of the camel races?
We've not. Have there been camel races? I've seen the robot fights. I've missed the camel races.
You gotta watch the camera.
You got the hotel TV's looping camel races, and it looks like the most incredible thing ever. You, as a spectator, you drive in a car next to the track watching the race. So, anyways, maybe not the point to get in here. Welcoming Trevor and Armani backpack, and I don't even know what the hell you're doing right now, Trevor.
Yeah, I'm building stuff again.
Yeah.
I've started a product studio called Copiapoa. I've spent a lot of time in the space building things across AI, media, and been fixated on this idea that creative people should be rich. And I've started a product studio called Copiapoa because I fell in love with this cactus that will kill off part of itself to survive in hostile climates. And it felt apt for creative people in this moment. If AI, robotics, and all the other pressures don't destroy us, we need to figure out how to create some, kill some dogmas and figure out how to iterate and evolve. And I feel like crypto's a big part of that. And so hacking away at some new ideas.
So yeah, I thought it would be fun to bring you on. You've been doing a bunch of writing sort of around this sort of artist trader world, and Armani are sort of leading an exchange and bringing these assets to you. So there's sort of this two sides of the coin here that I thought could be kind of interesting to get into. But maybe just to level set, Armani, if you want to just let people know what is Backpack, and I just feel like you have so much more of an impact in the space than maybe the wider crypto space knows today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, today Backpack is, on the one hand, a self-custodial wallet. On the other hand, a globally regulated international spot derivatives exchange. We are focused on everything from growing the crypto economy and building and integrating with all the applications here on Solana for the past several years, and we're focused on everything from regional expansion and going to markets in places like Europe and Japan. So I'm based out in Tokyo, and we do a lot of stuff in local regions to help kind of bring things like Solana to the world. So yeah.
Awesome. So I think where I want to start this off is both of you guys are making a big bet that tokens are going to be more in demand in the future than they are today. There's a great tweet, I think, from Adam Tech over at Counterparty TV, said there was only 2.9 million tokens issued last month, which I think if we go back a few years would seem insane, and yet is actually a decrease over where we've been in the last little while. So I'm curious, what is giving you confidence in the growth of demand for tokens?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I look at tokens is simply as a new canonical data representation of value. And that value can be everything as trivial as a meme token to something as important and foundational to the world as equities in the US stock market. And really what we're all doing here is we're redefining market structure all around the world. And I think over the past several years, what we've seen is really the technology build out to be able to support applications at scale today. And you combine all of that innovation over the past several years now with the legal frameworks that are kind of coming into place in the US and everywhere around the world, frankly. We're about to see an explosion of value tokenized and redefining capital markets all around the world. And so I think tokenization is kind of a bit of a buzzword, admittedly, but what's happening is very real. And I think you're seeing the maturity of the industry as kind of the world is waking up to kind of what the future of finance actually is going to look like. And it really all revolves around that token primitive to define what it means to be able to own something no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah, I think I could say better myself. I mean, the way I describe people that aren't maybe as close to finance or tech is, in previous bubbles, we laid a ton of fiber. People are like, what are we going to do on the internet with all this fiber? And turns out that video and media filled that up, and you could watch films and you could watch television, these kind of primitives you were familiar with in your browser on your phone. And the things that I'm kind of focused on is yes, we're going to tokenize everything, and there are going to be markets for lots of things and high frequency trading running through these really robust pipes that people like Armani help build. But are there emergent markets that would probably look pretty foreign to folks who only think of financial markets as guys at hedge funds trading, derivatives about commodities or whatever it is. And what I'm intrigued is there a path? Is there a world where people who are cultural analysts can have the upside of the guys that have yachts because they're commodities traders? And that's what we're kind of thinking about more broadly.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I'm most fascinated with, especially as tokenized stocks come on chain, traditional hedge funds come on chain, meme coins continue to proliferate. The number of tokens that people have the options to buy is infinite. Obviously, access is the greatest promise of crypto. But how does your average person find conviction or even understand what tokens they should buy and why they should buy them, I think is kind of a very pressing question in our industry. And I think maybe Trevor, you could tie this into your kind of artist question if you want to.
I mean, I wrote a piece that's kind of artist as trader. I think it's like kind of dissonant. People think about artists as being hostile to finance, and I'm the kind of product of the 2008 financial crisis. That's why I got into crypto. I was like, these fucking people ruined my parents' lives and my friends' lives. I don't want any part of this. But I think the really intriguing thing for me is I do think of like cultural intuition as a financial skill. I think of artists as creating objects and that are expressing beliefs and taking a position about the world. I think of traditional traders as doing the same. And I think what like permissionless markets have enabled is for us to create markets around things that artists have information advantages in. So when you ask what tokens people will participate in, I think if you're like a trad, trader, maybe a traditional like perp dex is exciting for you because you can stare at numbers or PE ratios and plug in a place that feels familiar. I think if you're someone who understands how like narratives grow and move online, a meme coin probably feels quite familiar, and you have an advantage that allows you to have asymmetric upside that traditionally has only existed on Wall Street or wherever else. And so that's where I get excited.
Armani, how do you guys think about this? Like, do you see it as your job to help people understand what tokens to buy, or is it really just about having all the assets available and they find conviction elsewhere?
I mean, knowing what tokens to buy is an age-old problem, right? Everybody wants to buy low and sell high. That's true whether you're buying tokens, meme coins, stock, or real estate. It's certainly, I don't think, our job to necessarily tell people what to buy, but it is our job to support the broader ecosystem and to help elevate the projects that we list and that we work with. And so I think ultimately it's very true that rising tides raises all boats. In the context of an exchange, we don't have in a business unless we have amazing assets and amazing protocols that are changing the world. And so from that point of view, I think we certainly are in the business of like surfacing relevant information. But ultimately, it's a problem in crypto in the same way it's a problem in the stock market.
Yeah. I mean, one problem that we maybe don't see in the stock market so much is the fundamental question of like, how do we value these things? And I'm curious, I feel like you both might have slightly different takes on this. So Armani, maybe I'll start with you. I'm like, how do you sort of think, what's your mental model around what makes a token valuable?
I wouldn't say my mental model is really any different from any other asset, right? You buy something for, I guess the discounted cash flows to the present
we got a
day,
fundamentals guy here.
Yeah, here we go.
Joe Weisenthal, shout out.
And I think that's true, obviously, whether it's crypto or anything else. And I think you're seeing that a lot in Solana, where everybody's talking about revenue now. People are starting to talk about tokenized stocks. They're talking about maybe utility-less tokens. People are having a pretty ravenous conversations about ownership coins versus future ARCIs versus buying back tokens and distributing revenues to token holders, and the lack of structures that are kind of holding things together. And I don't know. I think the fact of the matter is that the Delaware C Corp is probably the most socially scalable technology in the entire world. And I think there is nuance when talking about these new things that are not companies. Something like Solana, something like Ethereum, definitely something like Bitcoin, where this cash flow model is not exactly the right thing. Certainly when it comes to NFTs and artwork, where there's a much more qualitative, like cultural component in this collective story that we all tell ourselves, maybe across different generations. So I think it really depends on the asset that you're talking about and why you are acquiring it, right? Art is very different than a share in a company, which is very different than a commodity or something as abstract but important as a monetary asset.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's perfect. I can't really extend more of that. But me, one thing I'll highlight is I think one of the things I'm excited about in attention markets, prediction markets, and things that are kind of combining both of them is this idea that I saw NFTs as a bit of a sleight of hand. To me, they were an attention game. I thought the art was bad. I'm someone who collects art, capital A art. I thought a lot of the art was bad, and there were people that were kind of doing this hand wavy thing about value, and then kind of playing attention games. Why I like attention markets is people are calling a spade a spade. They're saying this is what it is. And so I think I'm really excited by the folks that are tokenizing, real world assets, that are bringing real businesses on chain, that are figuring out how these tokenized models can work beyond governance tokens or other hand wavy things. I'm equally excited about letting people speculate on and invest in attention. So
I loved your piece that came out recently, and I think you have this sort of ability. And you've been on TikTok and stuff, and I see you come across my feed with these like talking to cameras. I absolutely love it.
Trying.
But the core of it, I think, just to quote a bit here, you said artists like traders are analyzing, like traders analyzing companies or macro trends. They're trying to read the present and position themselves for the future. And I think the other line that really stood out to me was that there's something more soul crushing than existing in efficient markets. It's being forced to play the wrong game entirely. Can you expand on that? Because I feel like that's a bigger thing relevant to crypto than maybe was sort of represented there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to grapple with this dissonance that I seemingly felt in the group chats I've been in. For those who don't know me, I was a recording artist for a top 10 album when I was 23, and I kind of get to this intersection of art and technology for most of my life. And all of my group chats with my peers who used to talk about prestige television or new albums or new films have stopped talking about those things and talking about Fed rate cuts. And you're like, wait, what happened here? And then you start squinting and you think, wow, all these people have always been in the business of prediction. There just weren't markets that allowed them to participate. They had to kind of participate in these like really inefficient markets. We had a lot of information asymmetry intentionally, and they would create a product to try to express a belief about the future and hope that the market understood that, and then they would be, and evaluate flow back to them accordingly. But I think the introduction of things like prediction markets, attention markets, of even traditional markets coming on chain in a place where they can participate without all of these barriers, has allowed them to express some of these beliefs, and now they're getting excited about what other ways they can do those things. And that's stuff that I get really excited about. It feels like some new design space that kind of integrates these things, these two worlds that can seemingly live at odds: finance and kind of like culture or the art world.
I'm curious what your artist friends thought of the post. Were they like, "You're an idiot. I'm not trading tokens," or
no? I mean, I think what I'm trying to do now with like making videos and getting these ideas out is oftentimes I feel half cooked, but I want to get them out. And I think what resonated with a lot of people was this idea of like, yeah, my skill set probably is more aligned with being a trader than being a marketer. Like I sat at home on my computer and made beats because I didn't want to interface with people. I didn't want to like find, when I'm trading, I don't need to go like seek out a counterparty. I can just take a position, and if I'm right, I can be validated pretty quickly. And I think all of you guys probably know this experience being in crypto. Like, sure, it's fun to get rich, but it's often way more fun to be right. And I think a part of the cultural and like artistic experience is like making a record and turning into record labels like, no one's going to get this. This is fucking insane. And then having it do really well and being like, you didn't see it, I saw it, and I'm bringing it into the world. And so to me, I feel like, bizarrely like quite parallel.
I wonder if you have a take on that, Armani.
I mean, I think just to go off a bit on a tangent, so we've got an NFT project and Mad Lads in addition to Backpack. And I think the one thing that really strikes a chord with me is the aligning force of tokens, whether it's in the form of an NFT or a meme token or a utility token of some sort. There's just genuinely this incredible dynamic that happens when you can collectively align people around a single symbol and a single sense of purpose, whether it's a new startup that's being formed, a new art project, or a new album. And I think that kind of is really one of the magical pieces of a lot of what's happening in crypto over the past several years. It's like this conference that we're sitting at here. It's like every year, it's like a family reunion of people that we've kind of never see in person, but intimately know really well online. And I think that touches certainly like the artistic elements in a way, I think much deeper than just like trading or markets.
I mean, why do you think Mad Lads has been able to, I guess, be so Lindy in a way, or kind of maintain its community? I think a lot of that is also the promise of meme coins, but we don't see it actually happening in the same way. Like maybe the belief or whatever coordination exists for a week, not years, like we've seen with some of these old NFT projects. So like why is that?
I mean, I view NFTs very similarly to I view any other art project. You might, ask the question like, why is why might my parents say Jimi Hendrix is the best guitar player ever? And it's not because he's like, the best at like, playing chords and he's like the fastest at like strumming or whatever. It's probably because they all did a bunch of acid at Woodstock in the 60s together, right? It's this collective shared experience across an entire generation where everybody revolved around a single story. And I think that is certainly true in music. It's true in art. It's true in NFTs. It's true in crypto. It's just the form factor is different. We're not listening to music. We're holding, pictures. We're holding tokens. We're collectively, telling this crypto story. And it's as much of a cultural movement as it is a technological movement. And so I think that is like really kind of the framework I use for thinking about it.
So it's interesting to me because I think we live in the most fragmented attention and identity time probably ever. And so we think about the mainstream media, we think about the 3 channels of TV, we think about the Woodstock experience. All of those things are so relevant because they were the one thing that really broke out. And now we're living seems like independent little niche lives in different ways. And so I'm curious, does that sort of like create more of a bull case for these sort of tokens and products, or is that maybe something that is there like an upper limit now because of that attention being so split?
I think the exact same thing is happening, but people now have the tools to be able to do it on a much smaller scale. So you no longer need to get access to like all of the resources to be able to throw a huge festival and like own the radio waves and be able to actually, control the distribution channel. You can create your own distribution channel yourself. You can create your Discord, your own Telegram group. You can build your own app. You can
Live
get
stream.
Yeah, live stream. Yeah, exactly. And so I think the exact same thing's happening. It's just happening in a much more kind of local way, which is giving rise to just much richer, I think, experiences just happening on a local scale.
Yeah, I mean, my only answer to that would be like, I think you see in the real world this ability to kind of LARP as different, cultural forms. I'm always like, I'm a millennial, so I often see kids who are younger than me, like be a goth one day, be some like hip hop dude the next day, like a cowboy the next day. And I'm like, you can't do that. Like when I grew up, there were like a skater table, the prep table, or whatever it is. But I think that kind of like fluid identity has permeated it on chain. Like there are some spaces where my synonymous identity allows me to exist as one person, and I'm another person with my docs identity online. I think tokens community enable that kind of behavior as a Schelling point to rally around and form an identity around.
Yeah, very interested to get a good sense of the opportunities you guys are seeing ahead of you and running after. So Armani, maybe starting with you, like you're building in a hyper competitive wallet exchange market. Like where do you see, I guess, the wedge you guys are carving out for yourself, and what's kind of the big vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two elements of what we're doing that I think is really important. So I think the first thing is we are a very crypto native company, but we are very much taking a very regulated first approach, because we want to be able to bring everything that exists in traditional finance and actually be able to monetize it and bring it on chain. So whether that's fiat on and off ramps around the world, things like tokenized equities, things like being able to deal with regulated institutions and counterparties all around the world. And so on the one hand, we deeply care about being this bridge between these two worlds, where on the one side of the spectrum you have this parallel financial system that's been built over the past 10 years, whether it's on Ethereum or Solana, and on the other hand you have this power structure that underpins the entire global economy that is starting to slowly but very clearly move in this direction. And so we are very much kind of at the center of that evolution. And the flip side of that is the actual product experience. So what we really focus on is a unified portfolio where you can be able to do anything. You can trade spot margin, borrow, lending, perps, connect to any DApp, be able to buy a beer or dinner with your friends, be able to deposit in your Apple stock, pull out dollars, and be able to go pay for rent or buy a home. And so being able to actually be kind of at the center of this kind of evolution of market structure is kind of like where we see ourselves fitting in, and that form factors in an exchange, it's in a wallet, but it's really in this all-encompassing financial services app.
Yeah, Trevor, as you navigate this idea maze, try to figure out what products to build.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could live on maybe on the other end of the spectrum. Like when I was building Little Michaela, I was like, it's pretty clear to me it was like a lot of digital value, and potentially like virtual celebrities could capture some of that and repatriate it to creative people, kind of be this pass-through vehicle for my friends who are choreographers or 3D artists, whatever it is. And then with FWB, it was another exploration and saying, okay, can creative people who make spaces interesting capture some of that value? And I think what I'm thinking about now is like it's clear that people like Armani have built these really impressive pipes, and they're going to be legacy formats that people understand. And probably 95% of it might look like stuff that he's building on, and I think the other 5% of it might be kind of the parallel to what film and television saw with like social media. It's like this weird thing of people dancing in front of their cameras themselves because there's one on a phone. That's net new. And so what I'm poking at is like I like a lot of the elements about prediction markets. I like a lot of the things, I love bonding curves, like a lot of things about meme coins, but there are parts that I want to try to jam together such that we can kind of have these more perpetual attention instruments and allow creative people and people cultural intuition to take positions in them and see huge upside as a result. So that's kind of what I'm poking at.
Can you give us an example of a mechanism you're excited by? Or
yeah, I mean, I think the way I would talk about it, I mean, I actually really enjoyed. I don't see what Matt Levine was talking about, Kalshi doing markets for shoe prices on StockX. And he was like, clearly these should be futures, like, and I think about it myself. It's like there's interesting microstructures emerge when you try to like fit a really important like a culture market into this binary yes or no argument. And I think just pricing that and allowing it to exist as it should, in my opinion, is like a bit more elegant. And so the things I'm interested in is like, can we use AI and other tools to make sense of where some of these markets should live? Can we create fungibility? Can we try to condense things? Can we solve for fragmenting and vamping some of these problems that have made it harder to play these games? Can we make this more of a game of skill? such that like, and then this is where I'm kind of like a creator supremacist. I'm interested in like my people getting rich, and that's what I want to build for.
It's going to be a good clip, Trevor. So this question of AI is actually one that's on everybody's mind. Obviously, I sort of see crypto as one of the big waves, and AI the next big wave. Those things coming together, I think, creates a really unique opportunity. I think, Trevor, you have sort of been, I think, through Lil Miquela, a very, very, very early adopter of this, and I'm very curious about, what would be done differently today if you sort of had these crazy tools. And Armani, I know that you guys have sort of been bringing in some of these superpowers into the app in a way that's trying to really unlock a lot of stuff. So I guess I'm curious how you guys are looking at the opportunity for AI as it sits today.
Look, I mean, I think if you look at the two technologies, there's certainly two different sides of the same coin. On the one hand, you have this truth-seeking technology in crypto where you can verify anything. And that verifiability is ultimately what allows you to coordinate resources, humans, people, to do some things as boring and important as redefining market structure, and as like creative and exciting as meme coins, prediction markets, and NFTs. On the other side of the spectrum, right, you have AI, and you have basically the ability to embed intelligence into anything. And I think ultimately the world is going to figure out how to deal with the pros and cons of both of these things, because there are trade-offs. Being able to generate arbitrary images and videos for arbitrary things is perhaps going to be a pretty terrifying thing that we're going to have to deal with in our lifetime. And so I think, from a product point of view, it's ultimately just going to be about how do we bring and predict the most amount of value for users. And I think that's, inference at scale, kind of in a nutshell. And so whether that's being able to like vibe code a new app, or being able to predict what the users want to see, or being able to tell them that, this is a replacement for your, registered investment advisor to be able to, prudently like manage your retirement account. I think we're yet to see kind of how this shakes out, but I think like it's still pretty early. And I think the primitive of intelligence is like just like manifesting itself in a product form factor. And right now it's still like pretty messy. It's like you ask ChatGPT a bunch of questions and it gives you like, maybe 8 out of 10 times something reasonable, and then 2 out of 10 times something that it might hallucinate and be completely wrong. And so that probabilistic output is something that we still, I think, have yet to crystallize into something that makes sense. And so I think it's this, on the one hand, in crypto where everything is like perfect. And if you have a bug, the network goes down. But then on the other hand, AI is very probable and very imperfect. And so I think we've yet to see kind of how that form factor shakes out. But I think it'll definitely be an interesting intersection.
Yeah, and I think on my end with Little Miquela, like the kind of green space that I saw was, when I'm interacting with Rihanna online, it's no different than interacting with Little Miquela. Like I'm not gonna meet Rihanna, I'm not gonna meet Little Miquela. Our relationship is formed in this parasocial way, and that intimacy actually creates a lot of value. And to me, the kind of opportunity was like, okay, where will that value go? Traditionally, we have these kind of like rent-seeking middleman in the form of like Rihanna on set, capturing all this value that should go to like the songwriters or choreographers or other folks. Brilliant performer, no shade to Rihanna. And the opportunity for me was like, is there a way to create these pass-through vehicles such that that value could throw to people that I thought were doing a lot of the work? And so I think what AI and crypto enables for us, in my opinion, is the ability to like iterate on ideas really rapidly and allow people to like stumble into novel businesses. I get really excited, as you mentioned, with the code generation, this idea of like mom and pop software. I'm building my own VST plugins for my music production. Like I don't write C, like I don't, like this is really brilliant. And so what I'm excited about is tokens enabling all kinds of different financial opportunities for folks that they can then use, in kind of like the AI and other tooling to build net new software, net new ideas, net new media around. And I'm actually quite bullish around a lot of like the generative artwork. I think some of it's like totally fucking insane and aesthetically really interesting. And so I'm obviously very excited about a lot of these things, and just excited to be in the arena hanging out with smart guys like this guy.
Just happy to be here. Gentlemen, this is wonderful. I really appreciate you guys hopping on day 2 here at Breakpoint. Both these guys are building incredible things, so make sure you go give them a follow. I think we've all been in the space for a while, and I think maybe if you've come in fairly recently and dealt with the volatility, maybe haven't had the chance to sort of learn the hard trials and tribulations that have come through previous cycles. But I look forward to 2026 and just think like, oh my God, we've got kind of everything we've wanted, and now we don't really know what to do with it. It's a different problem, but I think a much better problem to have. So excited to see what you guys go build in 2026. Appreciate you guys for hopping on with us today, and We'll chat soon.
Dude, a pleasure. Yeah, if you guys want to see the future at Runner Rodeo.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about like this.
No.
This is like, what the fuck is this that he's building? Get across my timeline. You want to just chill it for a second?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I've been talking about. Like, we're trying to build a product that allows creative people to win, build like kind of like new markets, new behaviors, and new instruments that allow people to like win these games. And so we're gonna focus some things and some cool shit coming.
You can be earlier.
We're cooking.
Let's go. All right, dudes. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, fellas.
Yeah, man.
Metaplex. This clip brought to you by Metaplex. Launch tokens and NFTs on Solana and the SVM.